What's up with YouTube? Kobe NBA West, another video. This is video response to Coochie Lockdown is not the solution by Gotta Be Kidding Me. I felt this video didn't make sense on a lot of levels. I'm gonna go ahead and address some of those. So this is my response to that. Gotta be kidding me. The video you made to me is the defense of promiscuous women. Any reasonable individual, any logical person already gonna agree with you that we all possess different varying levels of skills amongst all of us. So factoring that into the topic is irrelevant actually. The common denominator to every scenario depicted throughout your video is that the woman shouldn't be held fully accountable for their sexual actions. And that's why you use the different, varying degrees of skills or responsibility for that matter to support some of your arguments. So let me go ahead and start in on my argument here. Now, to apply different degrees of people's sexual governance or sexual behavior as acceptable reasons to expect less from them doesn't make sense. Take, for instance, society. Society is ready to hold a man responsible for his sexual conduct no matter what the man's skill level is. Now, some of y'all gonna say, oh, well, he get caught for doing something that's wrong sexually, then he can just plead insanity. That only works in 1% of the cases. So 99% of the men will be going to jail. So we see that's not an acceptable excuse. Regardless of the man's skill level, his sexual governance will be held fully accountable under the law. But the law expands and is flexible for women. They can do just about anything. They can give the baby away. They can have an abortion. They can get paid for the baby. So the law is really flexible when it comes to women's sexual conduct and the consequences that may result from their conduct and choices. So, like I said, society's all ready to hold men responsible. Take, for instance, Kobe Bryant. Take Kobe, one of my favorite basketball players, right? They said homeboy we saw a homeboy in the media with the white girl up in Colorado when they said he raped her and this, that, and the third, right? They had to drop the charges, man, because they case was falling apart. They could see clearly that man didn't rape her. If they had him on any type of evidence, they're gonna say they did say, oh well, she decided not to go through with the trial. We all know that it don't matter if she want to go through with the trial or not. If the state has sufficient evidence, they don't need her to convict him. You know what I'm saying? So you mean to tell me that the United States government is going to let a rapist walk away and continue earning millions of dollars if he truly raped somebody? Use your head, people. But we all see that she got to go ahead and proceed with her civil case, but they made this the criminal case disappear, but the civil case proceeded straight ahead so she could get paid. You know, the man paid her to quit dragging his name through the mud because our society accepts this bullshit. It's cool. Look, women make a mockery. They are basically twisting the laws. Look at sexual harassment. What a joke that is. The Duke Lacrosse boys, how the prosecutor, how the school, the national media, and the society drug them through the mud without a shred of evidence against them. These are all examples of society's willingness to hold men accountable for their sexual governance. And at the same time, it shows the reluctancy to hold women to the very same standard. So, your vlog only supports what I'm saying. Your vlog argument was incorrect on many levels, but I'm going to go ahead and try to deal with a couple of them. First, you list theories. You said that previous theories. You list your theories as to why you feel, well, I'm going to say mythologies, why you feel the problems in the black community ain't being solved. Then you go on to make claims that previously proposed solutions are all based on faulty assumptions. Now, that in and of itself is based on a faulty assumption. And then you also make claims that a belief in a large group of people changes their behavior for the better is not possible. That's just flat out incorrect. So this video is a rebuttal to all of that. You know what I'm saying? I'm gonna debunk the coochie lockdown is not a solution video. Like I said earlier, the videos that the examples you're giving in your video are poor ones. They don't offer a critical examination to the coochie lockdown proposal. To me, it's a typical black female response to suggestions made by a black man about sexual responsibility amongst women. It's like she attempts to lessen the woman's responsibility by claiming it's unreasonable to expect all women to be selective and sexually responsible. You know, that's why she used the different various skill levels, you know what I'm saying, to support her argument there. Then she transitioned into men should stop making videos directed towards women concerning sexual responsibility and instead make videos directed towards other men about sexual responsibility. We can clearly see that this is the classic zip it up or pay up thinking that's common among black women, but except in this video it's all wrapped up in the nice adult words, you know what I'm saying? What she does in the video is she make the faulty assumption that if every woman don't participate, then it won't work. I think it's irrational and illogical to presume that the coochie lockdown's proposal won't work if every woman doesn't participate. Even a small number of women participating would improve the overall conditions in the black community. Then she was talking about, well, she didn't want no, theoretical example. She want a real world application of coochie lockdown. I got one for you. A real world example of the coochie lockdown in action would be back in Black America during the Reconstruction period, following the Civil War and slavery in America up until probably by like the mid 50s or the 60s, right? During that time, you would have been hard pressed to find a single mother running around claiming they don't need a man. So let's stop and think about this for a moment. Is it because the men didn't like pussy as much back then? Is that why you couldn't find that happening? Or maybe it's because most of the women back then were lesbians? No. During that period of time in America, it was much harder for blacks, and the living conditions were far more deplorable back then for blacks than they are now. Yet surprisingly, there weren't millions of single mothers and abortions each year in the black community. So why is that? Let's think about it. My proposal to why that is it because, it's because promiscuity back then was looked down upon in the black community. Back then, black women had to think and be responsible just like the rest of society. Back then, the black community possessed a different collective state of mind and attitude towards teen pregnancy. The women of that day had standards. Chief among them was not accepting any sperm inside them without being wed first. So, abortions and government rewarding women's bad choices are merely symptoms of the real illness. The true ailment is the lack of accountability. Self-accountability. As long as we justify women's behaviors and simply complain about the men making better choices, then nothing is ever going to change. And by the way, how can a man be selective if there ain't no decent women to be selective about? Men being selective doesn't eliminate men being selective don't eliminate the problems that I see a lot amongst the black women in our community. Men being selective ain't gonna mean there's gonna be any less hoes. Women have to be selective for there to be less hoes. And if there's less hoes, there's a domino effect. You got less hoes, I mean you got less abortions, you got less out of wedlock births, you got less single mothers. There's a lot more benefits from women being selective than there is from just men simply being selective. See, it's like black women fight anyone who suggests that they examine themselves and modify their behavior. So blacks are better off now than they were right after slavery. Why are our families and community disintegrating right before our eyes? So obviously we was better off back then because our family was intact and the self-accountability was paramount in our community back then. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I should have took time to really write something down instead of just coming off the cuff. And I ain't no hater. You made a good video. You just had some points that I had to point out to everybody out there because I don't want them just thinking what you're saying, goes without thinking for themselves. See, black women back then during the Reconstruction period up until the 1960s, they didn't have the easy outs that black women have today. They didn't have a society that rewarded their poor choices and careless behavior. They couldn't go get an abortion because they didn't feel like going through the pregnancy back then. So they had to be accountable. So it's all about accountability. Nobody makes you get pregnant. That's a choice of being accountable. Why is it before the advent of radical feminism, abortion rights, and welfare and child support and all that, the single mother didn't exist in the monolithic numbers that we have today? Unborn babies weren't butchered simply to alleviate women from the responsibilities. I don't know, man. That's just my response to your video. You know what I'm saying? You overlooked a lot of things, but like I said, overall it's a cool video. But there's a lot of things I had to point out that was just flat out incorrect. So coochie lockdown is certainly a solution, but it's a lack of responsibility that we promote among women that makes the proposal irrelevant to you. It's not about just coochie lockdown. It's about being accountable for one's actions. I do realize that my opinion probably won't be legitimized or to be discounted amongst women because I failed to blame men in this video. But think about it. If I did that, what would be the point of talking about self-responsibility? West Coast.